In a high-profile congressional hearing, the tension was palpable. Jessica Rand, a 27-year-old deputy press secretary with a knack for rhetoric, took her place at the witness table. Her chestnut hair was neatly tied back, and she wore a sharp green blazer that contrasted sharply with the polished wooden furnishings of the chamber. Moments before the session began, Eleanor Vanders, the veteran Speaker of the House, strode in with an air of authority. Her steely gaze trained on Rand. A wry smile hinted at her confidence, for she had orchestrated this moment to challenge the administration's economic successes and expose Rand as a mere puppet of the administration's narrative. The young lady will certainly find it hard to substantiate the administration's lofty claims regarding our economy, Vanders declared, her tone dripping with condescension. The tension in the room thickened. A mix of excitement and unease filled the air as members of Congress shuffled in their seats. Democrats murmured their approval, while members of the opposing party seemed to fidget, concerned for their young representative. Vanders was a political titan, a seasoned pro who had mastered the intricacies of Washington after decades of climbing the ranks. She had come equipped with strategies to dismantle Rand's arguments piece by piece, convinced that this hearing would serve as a platform to publicly humiliate a burgeoning conservative voice. Rand, however, carried the weight of an impressive career behind her. As the youngest press secretary to ever serve in the Republican caucus, she had a reputation for resilience and tenacity that her critics had underestimated. "You've claimed, Miss Rand, that this administration has fostered the strongest economy America has ever seen. Conversely, how do you justify the considerable inflation that families across the nation are grappling with?" Vanders challenged, a calculating edge to her voice as she launched the first salvo. As the room stilled, fear rippled through Rand's allies. Her composure remained unbroken as she responded, "Madam Speaker, I respect your question, and I would like to point out that our administration has created over 2 million jobs in the past 12 months, with the national unemployment rate at a historic low of 3.7%. Before she could elaborate, Vanders dismissed her answer with a wave. "Please, let's avoid reciting scripted answers. The American public is facing real issues, such as soaring food prices. Admit that your administration has failed to address these problems." Rand remained steadfast, correcting the perception Vanders aimed to create. "Madam Speaker, data shows that our job market is rebounding, and inflation rates are, in fact, on a downward trajectory." Without skipping a beat, Vanders stepped towards the mounted screen behind her. "Let's delve deeper, shall we? Your assertions are undermined by this visual," she declared, displaying a chart that dramatically illustrated rising consumer costs. The atmosphere became electric with anticipation, the room buzzing with reporters' whispers. Just then, a wave of fervor surged through the Democrats, as they believed that Vanders was building a compelling narrative to dismantle Rand's credibility. Vanders continued her methodical assault, citing selected quotes from Rand's previous remarks that were seemingly out of context. "In fact, just last month, you touted manufacturing growth as being at an all-time high, but we know from the Federal Reserve that this is far from the case." Her voice resonated, confident and poised. As Vanders spoke, journalists in the room busily scribbled notes, capturing every word. Meanwhile, Rand remained unemotional, a picture of composure. Her careful maneuvers would not go unnoticed by the media as they sensed a mounting tension brewing with every exchange. However, as Vanders concluded her prepared remarks, something unexpected unfolded. Rand calmly reached for a blue binder resting on the table. The room was instantly electrified as she straightened her blazer and prepared to rebut Vander's claims. "If I may, Madam Speaker, I appreciate your effort in presenting your case," she intoned, her voice sure. She opened the binder with a deliberate motion, causing many to lean forward, intrigued. "But I'd like to enter into the record several documents that provide a full and complete picture." Vander's expression faltered slightly, her facade of confidence cracking as Rand handed copies of unedited Federal Reserve economic reports that had been gathered meticulously for weeks. These reports highlight manufacturing growth at a robust 4.2% annual increase, an impressive 15-year high, as we've stated. The dynamics of the hearing changed instantly. Members of Congress sat riveted, sensing the tide had turned. Rand continued, "Additionally, my data addresses your inflation claims directly." She produced a Congressional Budget Office report clearly illustrating how inflation had begun to decline for the past 7 months. The sudden silence in the room felt heavy as Rand's statements hung in the air. She caught Vander's eye with poise. "Unless I am mistaken, these documents confirm that inflation is not only decreasing, but that the country is steadily rejuvenating its economic strength." Now visibly tense, Vanders attempted to regain her footing, flipping through the papers in front of her. Unbeknownst to her, Rand was just beginning. "Madam Speaker, I further submit this internal communication from your economic team, dated merely 2 weeks ago," Rand announced, her voice unwavering. "This memo confirms internal sentiment around the positive economic indicators, despite what has been relayed to the public. It states, current economic indicators show trends contradicting our public messaging strategy." The room erupted in an uproar. Republican members leapt to their feet, demanding clarity. Flashbulbs popped as journalists rushed to gather the latest scoop. The energy shifted sharply, with Vanders caught in the storm. Such a slip had not just been a backfire. It was a full-on detonation of her strategy. "Miss Rand, though we've often interpreted data for discourse, such actions don't warrant public theatrics," Vanders finally managed to retort, but her words carried none of the force they had before. Rand met Vanders' gaze directly, the confidence of youth complementing her clarity. "The American people deserve complete transparency, Madam Speaker. No longer should they suffer from selectively presented data that alters their understanding of economic realities." The stunned silence that followed bore the weight of a powerful shift. What was meant to be a showcase of Rand's vulnerability had transformed into a watershed moment for her burgeoning career, sending shockwaves through the political landscape. As leaders on both sides contemplated the ramifications, Rand's courageous display of evidenced truth stood in stark contrast to Vanders' earlier bombardment of half-truths. The aftermath of the exchange dominated news cycles, a captivating saga unfolding across media platforms. Rand had not only defended her position, she had become a beacon of transparency on a stage filled with rhetoric. The hashtag Dr. Rand Reversal trended on social media as clips of her performance went viral, portraying a young woman standing firm against the establishment. Supporters hailed Rand as a new star emerging in the political arena, as analysts speculated on her rapid rise. Offers from talk show hosts and invitations to appear on discussion panels poured in. She would later state, "This isn't about me winning a confrontation. It's about ensuring that the American people receive truthful information regarding their economy." Discontent in Vanders' camp surged, where leadership scrabbled to contain the fallout from the exposed memo and statements made during the hearing. Vanders, once celebrated for her sharp political savvy, now seemed caught off guard, leaders labeling the event a strategic failure that could have long-lasting consequences on Democratic credibility. As public trust began to wane, moderate members within the party expressed concerns over how data had been selectively used for political gain, a stark departure from the transparency that voters yearned for. Rand's confrontation had unveiled deeper issues within party lines, forcing introspection among leaders. Weeks slipped by in reflection, with Rand still under heightened scrutiny but simultaneously basking in the glow of newfound fame. The political landscape had been altered, thrusting her into a realm that promised new opportunities. Vanders, though still a formidable figure, was more circumspect in her public engagements. She sought counsel from experts as she navigated future economic conversations, trying to recuperate from the damage sustained during the hearing. At the White House, the president personally commended Rand, recognizing her pivotal role in shifting the national narrative on the economy. "You didn't just defend our message, you showed the public the kind of leadership they can trust," he said, affirming her worth to the administration. As support swelled for Rand, she continued to receive adoration from constituents who saw in her the embodiment of a new political dynamic rooted in authenticity. Many began voicing their sentiments through countless social media posts, celebrating a figure they perceived as genuinely connected to the American experience. Months rolled on, with Rand landing significant media appearances that amplified her message, advocating for transparency and accountability. Her stance resonated with citizens who felt overlooked by politicians who often swayed data to fit their narratives. Vander's political machine struggled to regain its footing amid growing skepticism from the public. Polls indicated a significant decline in confidence in the Democratic messaging strategy regarding the economy, while Rand's fresh voice became synonymous with honesty, long delayed. The early ripples of Rand's performance evolved into tidal waves, stirring discussions about what the future of political discourse would look like in Washington. What began as a single confrontation in a congressional hearing had blossomed into a broader call for honesty in economic communication, cracking open the door for a generation of politicians keen on the truth. While the immediate aftermath had posed intricate challenges, it also paved the way for an alliance among younger representatives who convened to form a coalition dedicated to ensuring data integrity in economic discussions. Among them was Rand, an embodiment of invigorating leadership in a time of political malaise. As the dust settled from the groundbreaking episode, it became increasingly clear. Practice and authenticity had given rise to a new kind of leader who promised to redefine the trust factor in political communication, one where the truth would reign supreme. The stage had been set for an exciting new chapter, one with Jessica Rand as a notable force within it, emerging not just as a figure in the spotlight, but as a symbol of the transformational power of truth within the political arena. The conversations would never return to their previous silence, as Rand reminded all of Washington that beneath the flash of politics and the clamor of debate, the American populace craved words rooted in fact, transparency, and a fair presentation of the truth, elements that would forever be embedded in her approach moving forward. Thus, the spectacle that began as an attempt to suppress and humiliate had indeed spun a new narrative, authoring an unprecedented tale of resilience, courage, and the ever-relevant quest for honesty in governance. Washington had underestimated her strength before, but now they would regard her as a force to be reckoned with, an agent of change in a landscape where truth had too often been at the mercy of deception. The political landscape had shifted irrevocably, and the tale of Jessica Rand would transcend her young age, marking the rise of a new era driven by clarity and accountability. The narrative went beyond one chamber recounting to encapsulate an evolution in how political interactions might unfold in the future, forever altering the discourse surrounding American economics and the vigor with which those truths were fought for in the heart of democracy.